What happens when a royal who thinks he can control every narrative walks into the lion's den of late-night television? What happens when entitlement meets brutal honesty? When carefully crafted public relations collides with raw, unfiltered comedy? Tonight, we're diving into one of the most explosive moments in talk show history. A clash so intense it ended with security being called and a guest being physically removed from the studio. The Real Time with Bill Maher studio was buzzing with anticipation. The audience had settled into their seats, unaware they were about to witness television history. Bill Maher, known for his razor-sharp wit and no-nonsense approach to interviewing, was preparing for what his producers had pitched as a straightforward promotional interview. Prince Harry was making the rounds, pushing his latest memoir, and the booking seemed like a natural fit for the show's format. But from the moment Prince Harry walked onto that stage, something felt different. The usual warmth that guests bring to promotional appearances was nowhere to be found. Instead, there was an air of superiority, a sense that this wasn't going to be the typical softball interview royal handlers usually arrange. Harry's demeanor suggested he expected the kind of deference he'd grown accustomed to from fawning journalists and carefully vetted media appearances. Bill Maher, however, had built his career on treating every guest the same way, regardless of their title, wealth, or status. As the cameras began rolling, he leaned back in his chair with that familiar smirk, ready to do what he does best: ask the questions others won't ask, and say the things others won't say. Welcome back to Real Time. I'm Bill Maher, and tonight we have Prince Harry with us, Maher began, his tone already carrying that edge his regular viewers knew so well. You know, Harry, I've got to say, for someone who claims to want privacy, you sure do a lot of talking. The comment landed exactly as Maher intended, drawing laughter from the studio audience. Harry's reaction was immediate and telling. His jaw tightened, his posture stiffened, and for a brief moment, the carefully constructed media persona slipped away, revealing something much less pleasant underneath. Well, Bill, I think there's a difference between wanting privacy for my family and using my platform to create positive change, Harry responded, his voice carrying a condescending tone that made several audience members shift uncomfortably. Maher raised an eyebrow, sensing the tension immediately. Oh, positive change, right? Like moving to California and signing multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix and Spotify while complaining about how hard your life has been. That kind of positive change. The audience erupted in laughter and applause, but Harry wasn't amused. His handlers, positioned just off camera, exchanged worried glances. This wasn't going according to their carefully planned script, and Harry's growing agitation was becoming impossible to hide. I think you're mischaracterizing my intentions. Bill, my wife and I left the UK because of the toxic media environment and the lack of support from my family. We've been very clear about our reasons, Harry said, his voice rising slightly, the first crack in his composed facade. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I mischaracterizing? Maher leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with interest. Let me get this straight. You left because the media was mean to you, so your solution was to do more media. You wanted privacy, so you wrote a tell-all book. You wanted to protect your family, so you threw your own family under the bus on international television. Help me understand the logic here, Your Royal Highness. The sarcasm was unmistakable, and the audience was eating it up. Harry, meanwhile, was clearly struggling to maintain composure. His face flushed red, his hands clenched in his lap, and his voice carried the edge his media training had taught him to suppress. You don't understand what it's like to live under that kind of scrutiny, Bill. You don't understand what it's like to have your every move dissected, your wife attacked, your children threatened. You sit here in your comfortable studio making jokes, but you have no idea what real pressure feels like. The studio fell silent. Maher's expression shifted from amused to incredulous. I don't know what pressure feels like, Harry. I've been doing this show for over 20 years. I've had death threats, protests, boycotts. I've been canceled more times than I can count. But here's the difference between you and me. I don't whine about it. And I certainly don't expect the world to feel sorry for me because I have a tough job I chose. Harry snapped. Don't you dare compare your situation to mine. You chose this life. I was born into mine. Everything I've done has been about protecting my family from the same system that killed my mother. The mention of his mother was meant to shut the conversation down. But Bill Maher doesn't back down, especially not when he senses manipulation. And there it is, Maher said, his voice cutting through the tension. The Diana card. You know, Harry, your mother was beloved because she showed grace under pressure. She used her platform to help others without constantly talking about how hard it was for her. She didn't spend her time on podcasts complaining about her in-laws or writing books about how terrible her life was. Maybe the problem isn't the system. Maybe the problem is you. The comparison hit Harry like a blow. His face drained of color, and for a moment, it looked like he might walk off set. The laughter died down as the audience realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. "How dare you?" Harry whispered, venom in his voice. "How dare you use my mother's memory to make some cheap point for your audience? You know nothing about her, nothing about what she went through, nothing about what I've been through." Maher didn't flinch. If anything, he looked energized. "I know she didn't spend her time on Oprah's couch throwing her family under the bus. I know she didn't move to another country and then spend years complaining about the one that gave her everything. And I'm pretty sure she wouldn't recognize the man you've become." "You've crossed a line, Bill," Harry said, standing up, his hands shaking. "This interview is over." But Maher wasn't letting him dictate terms. "Sit back down, Harry. You came on my show. You're going to finish this conversation like an adult, unless you want to prove my point about you being unable to handle any real criticism." The challenge hung in the air. Harry's handlers gestured frantically for him to leave, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. He sat again, his body tense, hostility radiating. "Fine," Harry said through gritted teeth. "But let's talk about something you might actually understand. Let's talk about your hypocrisy, Bill. You sit here lecturing me about privilege while you live in a mansion in the hills, making millions talking about other people's problems. At least I'm trying to make a difference in the world." Maher laughed, cold and sharp. "Making a difference? Harry, you've turned victimhood into a career. Your entire brand is built on how hard your life has been. Meanwhile, you're living in a $16 million mansion in Montecito, married to an actress, making money hand over fist by talking about how oppressed you are. If that's making a difference, then I'm the Pope." "You don't know what you're talking about," Harry shot back, his composure gone. "Meghan and I have done more charitable work in the past 3 years than you've done in your entire career. We've raised awareness about mental health, social justice, climate change. What have you done besides sit behind this desk and make jokes?" The audience was completely silent now, sensing that this had moved far beyond entertainment into something genuinely uncomfortable. Maher's response was swift and brutal. "What have I done? I've donated millions to charity without making it a public relations campaign. I've supported causes without needing a Netflix camera crew following me around. I've criticized powerful people without expecting them to thank me for it. But here's the real difference between us, Harry. When I help people, I don't spend the next 5 years talking about how hard it was for me to help them." Harry's face was now a mask of pure fury. "You smug, arrogant," he started, then caught himself, clearly struggling to maintain even a shred of dignity. "You think you're so clever, don't you? You think your little jokes make you some kind of truth-teller. But you're just a bitter old man who's never had to face real adversity in your life." "Bitter old man," Maher repeated, his eyebrows raised in mock surprise. "Harry, I'm not the one who moved to another continent because my family hurt my feelings. I'm not the one who spent millions on therapy and then wrote a book about it. I'm not the one who claims to want privacy while simultaneously courting every media outlet on the planet. Between the two of us, who sounds more bitter? At least I stand for something, Harry snapped. At least I'm trying to change the world instead of just mocking it from the sidelines. You stand for something? Maher's voice was incredulous. Harry, your entire platform is complaining about how unfairly you've been treated. That's not standing for something. That's wallowing in something. Your wife got some bad press, so you decided the entire British monarchy was racist. Your family didn't give you everything you wanted, so you publicly humiliated them on international television. That's not activism. That's revenge. Harry was on his feet again, this time not bothering to hide his rage. You don't get to talk about my wife. You don't get to minimize what she went through. The racism she faced, the lies that were printed about her, the way the institution failed to protect her. You sit here in your privilege bubble and act like none of that matters. I'm not minimizing anything, Maher replied calmly, remaining seated while Harry towered over him. I'm just pointing out that your solution to every problem seems to be to run away, and then spend years talking about how brave you were for running away. Your wife faced criticism. Welcome to public life. Your family disappointed you. Welcome to having a family. The difference is most people don't turn their personal drama into a global media campaign. The tension in the studio was now so thick, it was almost suffocating. Crew members were positioned at the edge of the stage, clearly unsure whether they should intervene. Harry's security detail was moving closer, their hands hovering near their earpieces. The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to be entertained or horrified by what they were witnessing. Harry was breathing heavily now, his chest rising and falling as he stared down at Maher, who remained infuriatingly calm in his chair. The power dynamic was crystal clear to everyone in the room. Harry was losing control while Maher maintained complete command of his own show. You know what your real problem is, Bill? Harry said, his voice dripping with contempt. You can't stand that someone with actual influence, someone who actually matters in the world, won't bow down to your little comedy routine. You're used to interviewing politicians and celebrities who need something from you, but I don't need anything from you or your show. Maher's response was immediate and devastating. If you don't need anything from me or my show, then what exactly are you doing here, Your Highness? Because last I checked, you came on my show to sell your book. You needed my audience, my platform, my legitimacy. So let's drop the pretense that you're doing me some kind of favor by gracing us with your presence. The audience stirred uncomfortably. Even they could see that Harry had walked directly into that trap, and his face showed he knew it too. But instead of backing down, he doubled down on his aggression. I came here because I thought you might actually be interested in having a real conversation about real issues, Harry said, his voice getting louder. But all you want to do is make cheap shots and get laughs from your audience. You're no different from the tabloid journalists I've spent my life dealing with. Oh, I'm interested in real issues, Maher replied, leaning back in his chair with that signature smirk. Like the real issue of why someone who claims to care about the environment flies around in private jets. Or the real issue of why someone who talks about equality lives in a gated community that costs more than most people make in a lifetime. Or the real issue of why someone who criticizes the media for invasion of privacy then goes on every talk show and podcast that will have him. Each point hit Harry like a physical blow, and his responses were becoming increasingly desperate. Those are all necessary sacrifices to do the work we're doing. You couldn't possibly understand the complexities of trying to create change while operating within these systems. Necessary sacrifices. Maher's voice was filled with mock amazement. Harry, you just called living in a $16 million mansion a necessary sacrifice. Do you hear yourself right now? Do you have any idea how that sounds to people who are actually struggling in this world? Harry's face was now bright red again, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. You're twisting everything I say. You're taking my words out of context, just like every other journalist who's tried to tear me down. I'm not twisting anything, Maher said calmly. I'm literally repeating back what you just said. You called living in luxury a sacrifice. You called private jet travel necessary. You called leaving your royal duties brave. I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm just not letting you get away with the doublespeak you're used to. The breaking point came when Harry, in his frustration, made the mistake of trying to assert his authority. Do you know who you're talking to? Do you have any idea what my family has given to this world? What we've sacrificed for public service? The studio fell dead silent. Even the crew stopped moving. Maher's expression shifted from amused to genuinely angry for the first time in the interview. There it is, Maher said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. The real Harry, not the victim, not the activist, not the concerned humanitarian. Just another entitled rich kid who thinks his last name makes him better than everyone else. Do I know who I'm talking to? Yeah, I'm talking to a guy who was born into incredible privilege and has spent his entire adult life complaining about it. Harry's response was explosive. You have no right to judge me or my family. You know nothing about the sacrifices we've made, the duty we've carried, the service we've given. Your little comedy show is nothing compared to the responsibility I was born into. Responsibility you ran away from the moment it got difficult. Maher shot back. You want to talk about sacrifice? Let's talk about your grandmother who served for 70 years without complaining. Let's talk about your father who's devoted his entire life to public service. Let's talk about your brother who's carrying on the family tradition while you're in California, making Netflix documentaries about how hard your life is. Don't you dare bring my family into this, Harry snarled, stepping closer to the desk. You don't get to lecture me about my own family. I'll talk about whoever I want on my own show, Maher replied, rising to his feet for the first time and matching Harry's aggressive posture. This is my house, and if you don't like the conversation, there's the door. Harry's security team began closing in, clearly uneasy with how far the situation had escalated. The audience was frozen in silence, fully aware this had gone beyond entertainment and into genuine hostility. Maybe I should leave, Harry said, his voice trembling with rage. Maybe I should let you get back to your sad little echo chamber where everyone agrees with your bitter world view. Maybe you should, Maher agreed. But before you go, answer me this, Harry. When you're lying in your mansion tonight, surrounded by all the luxury your sacrifice has bought you, will you still believe you're the victim in this story? Will you still believe the world owes you something because you had a difficult childhood? Or will you maybe, just maybe, consider that the problem isn't everyone else? It's you. The words struck like a hammer. Harry's face twisted in fury. The suggestion that he was the problem cutting deeper than anything else that had been said. You arrogant piece of... he started, his voice rising before he stopped himself, realizing millions would be watching. But the mask was gone, replaced by the raw anger of a man exposed. Maher pounced. What? Harry, I'm an arrogant piece of what? Go ahead, say it. Show America what you really think of people who don't bow down to your Royal Highness. Harry's body trembled with rage, his breathing shallow. I think you're a pathetic, bitter man who gets his kicks from tearing down people who are actually trying to make a difference in this world. You hide behind your comedy and your audience, but deep down, you're nothing but a glorified court jester. Maher laughed. A court jester? That's rich coming from someone whose entire family exists to wave at people and cut ribbons. At least I earned my position, Harry. I wasn't born into it because my great-great-great-grandmother happened to marry the right guy. That was the breaking point. Harry slammed his hand on the desk so hard the water glasses rattled and microphones shook. The crack echoed through the studio like a gunshot. That's enough, he roared, abandoning all pretense of dignity. I don't have to sit here and listen to this from some washed-up comedian who thinks he's relevant. You're nothing, Bill. You're a nobody who will be forgotten the moment you stop doing this pathetic show. Security moved in closer. Producers in the control room frantically debated whether to cut to commercial, but Maher stood his ground, unfazed. "And there's the real Prince Harry," Maher said calmly. "Not the victim, not the humanitarian, not the loving husband and father. Just another spoiled rich kid having a tantrum because someone won't tell him how special he is." Harry leaned across the desk, his face inches away, and hissed, "You have no idea who you're dealing with. You have no idea what I'm capable of." The threat was unmistakable. Security immediately flanked him, ready to intervene. "Is that a threat, Your Royal Highness?" Maher asked, still seated, still composed. "Because it sure sounds like you're threatening me on national television." The weight of what he'd just said dawned on Harry. He stepped back, but the fury still burned. "I didn't threaten anyone. I just pointed out, you don't know who you're dealing with." "I know exactly who I'm dealing with," Maher said evenly. "A man-child who's never been told no, who thinks his title gives him the right to intimidate people, and who just proved every single point I've made about him tonight." Harry's eyes darted around the studio, realizing dozens of cameras had caught every second. His handlers waved frantically from the sidelines, urging him to leave before it got worse. "This interview is over," Harry announced, straightening his jacket in a desperate bid to reclaim dignity. "I won't be subjected to this kind of treatment." "Actually," Maher said, turning to the cameras, "this interview is over because I'm ending it. Harry, you came on my show as a guest, but you behaved like a bully and made what sounded like threats. That's not how we do things here." Harry's face drained of color. He was being kicked off, publicly humiliated, dismissed like a misbehaving child. "You can't do this to me," he sputtered. "Do you know who I am? Do you know what this will do to your show?" "I know exactly who you are," Maher replied. "You're someone who just wore out his welcome. Security, please escort Prince Harry from the building." Security stepped in firmly but without force. As they led him toward the exit, Harry threw one last desperate line over his shoulder. "This isn't over, Bill. You have no idea what you've just done." "What I've done," Maher told the audience as Harry vanished backstage, "is show America who Prince Harry really is when he doesn't get his way. And honestly, I think we've all learned something valuable tonight." The audience erupted in applause, the release of pent-up tension filling the room. They had seen a royal lose control, make threats, and get thrown off a talk show. As the credits rolled, Maher looked straight into the camera, smirking. Folks, that's what happens when entitlement meets reality. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to let me know in the comments what you think Prince Harry learned from tonight's experience.